Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. I am Councilmember at Large Laurie Sayles, and honored to join my colleague, Councilmember Jawando, our county executive, Mark Elrich. We also have our director of Transportation, Department of Transportation, Director Conklin, and also the Office of Human Rights Director, Mr. Jim Stowe, joining us to honor and pay tribute to Rosa Parks. So I'm going to provide a few remarks, and then I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues who will also provide remarks before we read the proclamation. And so it's interesting that it's been almost 70 years since the boycott happened in Montgomery, Alabama. 70 years have passed since Rosa Parks made the quiet yet defiant refusal to give up her seat in December of 1955, igniting the Montgomery bus boycott, showcasing the power of collective action. Rosa Parks continues to inspire us to take a stand and strive for racial equity and social justice. Despite facing arrest, job loss, and threats to her safety, she never wavered. Thanks to the relentless efforts of Parks and other activists and allies, the Supreme Court struck down bus segregation in the Browder versus Gale decision, paving the way for integrated bus transportation. Here at the County Council, we are dedicated to building upon her legacy by advancing and enhancing accessibility and connectivity in our public transportation system. We are committed to achieving a sustainable, equitable, and affordable transportation system for all to enjoy. We want to thank everyone for joining us. And before we read the proclamation, I'm going to turn it over to our county executive, Mark Elrich. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, congratulations, Natalie, on your ascension to the new seat, the new role. And also Malcolm, Marilyn, for your success also. 70 years ago, on December 1st, Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat to a white man on a Montgomery, Alabama bus. And that brave act sparked the Montgomery bus boycott, not the Montgomery County bus boycott, and a pivotal moment in the civil rights movement. Rosa Parks' refusal to comply with the dehumanizing racist laws highlighted the harsh realities of segregation. Schools, water fountains, restrooms, houses, and more were unjustly divided by race. And I know there are some of us in the room who know that persisted well beyond this time. And, I remember seeing white-only signs. And so there's a different past that fortunately, we're not living through right here. There is a certain president who's interested in ignoring it, but we're not ignoring it. Her stand reminds us that public transportation is about equity and access. And we wanted to reinforce our commitment to ensuring access is open to all. So the county's made its ride-on bus system free at the beginning of this year, so that everybody receives the benefits of mobility and can sit in any seat. This month's about honoring Rosa Parks for standing up to racism. Rosa Parks showed us that bold and courageous actions are necessary to bring about meaningful change. Change doesn't happen unless people are willing to challenge it. And if they're not willing to challenge the status quo, it becomes very difficult to create change. She demonstrated the power that each of us has when we stand up for justice and equality. I don't think anybody imagined that her single action that day would lead to a movement and would ignite a firestorm in this country. But what she did, I believe, gave courage to a lot of other people to follow in her footsteps and say, we're not going to take this anymore. As the late Congressman John Lewis said, speak up, speak out, and get in the way. Get in good trouble, necessary trouble, and help redeem the soul of America. Rosa Parks exemplified good trouble through her actions, character, and grace. So let's honor Rosa Parks by continuing her work, standing up to injustice wherever we see it, and striving for equality for all.
Thank you, County Executive Elrich. And now we'll hear from the Office of Human Rights Director, Mr. Jim Stowe.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Sayles and Councilmember Jawando, Mark Elrich, and our new president, our new president, our new president. Thank you so much, and members of council as well. Uh, I want to first of all lay the stage a little bit about kind of where we're here, and we've had some background. I just recently returned, well, not so recent now as it turns out, but down to Montgomery, and I really found out a lot more about Rosa Parks. And not only was she engaged in this tremendously courageous act that we talk about and we often familiarize ourselves with and associate her with, but the reason that Rosa Parks was the right person, by the way, there had been 15 other folks who had refused to give up their seat. In the case of Rosa Parks, she was sitting in her right seat. She sat behind the colored sign. And in those days, if the bus filled up with white people and exceeded the number of open seats in the front, then black folks in the back in their assigned seat would have to get up and leave that seat and wait till the next bus. But this particular day, it was not orchestrated. It was not planned, as it turns out. And she wants us to know from her history that, in fact, she was not some old, poor, tired person who had been working all day on her feet. That was not it at all. Rosa Parks was 42 years old when this happened. She was a young woman. But she goes on to say that why I did this was I was finally tired. I was finally tired of always giving in. That was the issue. And so on this particular day, she chose then not to give in. And so we look at her in that context is one thing. I also found out that she didn't want to go to the back of the bus, folks, because oftentimes women would be sexually harassed in the back of the bus. So she knew that. And so there was something already going on that had nothing to do with what we think about traditionally today, right? But there was something else going on. It turns out that in addition to being secretary of the NAACP, Rosa Parks was also the person assigned in the branch to work with women who had been victims of sexual violence. She was the one to make real sure that they got their day in court. And so when she was found out to be the person that was in fact asked to leave her seat, it was instant credibility all across the community because people knew her. She had been in the community working all the while. And so again, this was not just a guest appearance on this bus December 1st of 1955. It was a list of ongoing activities that she had been engaged in on behalf of her community. And so when you think about Rosa Parks, please think about the day that she chose then to sit down and not get up. But also think about the fact that she was there fighting for women's rights back in 1955 to ensure that they had, again, an equal access to justice, particularly as it relates then, again, to sexual violence. And so I learned that. And so now when I see and hear her name, I celebrate that in an all new, different kind of way. Because now she was a courageous person. Not only does she allow all of us to find a seat, but we can find a seat in any place in America because she chose to be courageous, not just for a day, but for a lifetime. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Stowe, always teaching us something new. And now we're going to turn this over to Director Conklin.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having the Department of Transportation here today. Want to mention that we are posting placards in all of the buses to commemorate Rosa Parks' courageous act many decades ago. And I think one of the main values of this is this history is seeming distant to many people. They're not personally familiar with these actions. They're not personally familiar with the struggle. And it's important that we create a reminder for people to call back to the events that happened before and to bring us to this day today. And also to make mention of the importance of public transit in improving equity and access in our community to education, to work, and to services. And I'm personally very proud to work in a county that values this so much and ensures that all of our community has access to these things that they need to achieve what they want in life, regardless of their means, racial background, or other attributes they may have. So we're very happy to be part of this commemoration. We look forward to this every year, and I'm very happy that we're able to do it again this year, and thank everybody for inviting us to be part of this today.
Thank you, Director Conklin, for sharing this special day with the community as well. And now we'll close out with Councilmember Jawando before we read the proclamation.
Thank you. I'll be very brief because Director Stowe gave us all the important history. I'll add one point. Rosa Parks passed away October 24th, 2005, so it's also the 20th anniversary of her passing, in addition to the 70th anniversary of her sitting down on the bus. I was fortunate to be a young staffer on Capitol Hill in 2005, where the very rare occurrence of a non-elected official, she laid in state in the Capitol Rotunda, and many of us would go down there and were able to see her casket and honor her legacy. The last thing I'll say is, to Director Stowe's point, not only was it not preordained or planned that day, but if you heard what he said, she was prepared for the moment. She was in the NAACP. She had credibility. There were other colleagues who immediately printed thousands of flyers after she took the step. A legal court case was filed. A young preacher named Martin Luther King Jr. led the bus boycott that emerged and led to 381 days of protest and the changing of policy in Montgomery and across the country. But she was prepared for that moment. And there was institutional infrastructure and organization around her to lead to the change. And I think sometimes folks who we hear today, people hear, oh, well, there's this organized protest. Protests have always been organized, and they've been talked about. And that's an important part of changing things. You only change people with organized people and organized money. And we know the money's going to be organized. So you got to have organized people. And that's part of what I think is Rosa Parks' legacy, is that she was prepared for the moment. She stepped up for her community, and it's important that we honor her. So thank you very much.
All right. County Executive, you ready?
Yep.
Thank you, everyone, for all of the great remarks. And whereas Rosa Parks Day is an annual commemoration honoring Rosa Louise Macaulay Parks, whose quiet courage helped ignite the civil rights movement and continues to inspire generations to advocate for equality and challenge injustice. And
whereas on December 1st, 1955, Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat to a white passenger on a segregated bus in Montgomery, Alabama. Her firm response, "No, I will not," to the bus driver's demand sparked a movement rooted in dignity, resistance, and hope. And
whereas her arrest galvanized civil rights leaders, including Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., to organize the Montgomery bus boycott, which began on December 5th, 1955, and
whereas for 381 days, Mrs. Parks and thousands of African-American residents of Montgomery, Alabama endured arrests, job losses, and daily hardships as they boycotted the city's segregated bus system. And
whereas on November 13th, 1956, the United States Supreme Court ruled that segregation on public transportation was unconstitutional. The bus boycott officially ended on December 20th, 1956, marking a pivotal victory in the fight for civil rights. And
whereas Rosa Parks' moral clarity and quiet heroism helped launch the national justice movement, inspired Dr. King's leadership, and demonstrated the power of nonviolent resistance, Mrs. Parks' actions and the unity of more than 40,000 African-American residents brought national attention to the struggle against discriminatory transit policies. And finish it.
whereas in honoring Rosa Parks' legacy, we also recognize that transportation equity remains a civil right. Montgomery County continues to advance this principle through its Ride On Reimagined initiative, which established a zero fare policy on all ride-on buses beginning June 29, 2025, to reduce barriers to access and ensure equitable transit for all residents. And now, therefore, be it resolved that Mark Elrich, as County Executive, and the entire County Council of Montgomery County, Maryland, do hereby recognize Rosa Parks Day and call on residents to confront intolerance in all its forms and to uphold Mrs. Parks' enduring legacy. May her courageous example ignite a fierce commitment to bold action against oppression and serve as a rallying point for leadership in the fight for justice. Presented on this second day of December in the year 2025 by County Executive Mark Elrich and Council President Natalie Fani Gonzalez. Thank you, everyone.